So the next step on our list is to apply pressure. And apply pressure is about making sure that the team are actually given the resources that they need to complete things, but then also that you're checking in and making sure that they're actually doing it. Now, what does that look like in a technology implementation? Well, it might be a training guide, training resources, video library. When we implement G Suite, we have an online video library called Genius Academy, and each one of our customers goes through that and puts their staff through that so they can learn how to use the new tools. But there's also other ways of doing that. There's help guides, there's automated systems which allow you to work through that with someone. But apply pressure is really about making sure your team actually use the new tool that you've implemented. One of the things that we do when we are switching someone from Microsoft over to the Google world is we have a go live date. And that go live date is a hard deadline. What that means is at some point, we're going to be taking our customers and we're going to be saying to them, hey, in this time, at this point, we're going to actually be forcing you to switch over to Google. You're going to stop using your Outlook and you're going to start using Google. And one of the things that I really like about that is with that hard deadline, we actually have email stops going to their Outlook. Like, so you can't use your old email anymore. So your old Outlook becomes useless on the day that you switch over to Gmail. And so think about if you're implementing a new tool or a new piece of software, how can you have a hard deadline? Can you lock someone out of their old account? Can you switch something off which forces someone to use the new tool? Are there other ways of making sure that things are actually adopted so that you can apply pressure to adopt the new way of doing things? If someone is on the go live day and they open up a new tool, but they don't really feel confident using it or they haven't had the pressure applied, you may find that they quickly switch back to the last tool, right? And that's where we can end up with, let's go back to apply pressure. If we don't apply pressure, it can take too long for people to actually adapt to the tool. Okay, so let's move on to the next one. The next one is called provide capacity. Now, providing capacity is about making sure that your team have support. Do they have the time to implement this change? Do they have the ability to get help when they need it? So do they have a help desk available? Is there someone that they can go to for help? Or is there someone on your team who is a champion of the new product that is designated as the place to go to when someone needs help? Now, when we implement G Suite, and I'm using this as a great example, we have our help desk available. So someone goes to sign into Gmail for the first time, they can't work out how to set up their signature. Well, they can go to our help desk, either pick up the phone or send us a message, and they'll get help actually setting that up by someone on the help desk team. Now, what you might want to do inside your team is set up a guru. We also sometimes use Google Gurus. And Google Gurus are someone who, as you're going through change in a larger organization, you'll have someone who knows the product. And that person who knows the product, they will be the one responsible for teaching others. Now, that might be someone who's like a Gen Y and they're super comfortable with the tool. It might be someone who's been a part of your implementation project. And so not only are they a stakeholder in making sure that it's successful, but also that person will be responsible for having the knowledge of how this new tool works and then making sure that the team have someone to go to who can ask questions. So those are going to be the people who are going to be your gurus, and we're going to provide capacity for your team to actually get help when they need help. And so we're talking about implementing tools right now, but you can also apply this to fixing the tools that you've maybe implemented right now. If you've not yet implemented something or you've put something in place and it's not really working, then maybe go through this checklist and see what steps have I missed. Have you recently implemented something, or maybe you set something up a long time ago and it's just not being used the way that you want it to be used? So the next one we're going to talk about is called baby first steps. And this is really about allowing your team to gradually take on a new product without completely fire hosing them on the first day. And so implementing baby first steps might look like implementing a new piece of software or a new tool in multiple stages. You might start with something basic and then bit by bit work up to the more advanced things. For example, when we implement G Suite, we'll often start just with Gmail, contacts, and calendar, and then over time, introduce Google Drive. Over time, we will switch documents from Microsoft format to Google format. Over time, we will implement Google Sheets. Over time, we will implement Google Sites for an intranet. Not all of these happen on the same day. And when a customer comes to us and says, hey, I've got a deadline, I want to switch over to Google and I want it done in 30 days, well, that can be a little bit of a challenge because we know that it takes teams time to adapt to change. We know that your team are going to have to get used to working from a local machine or working from your Dropbox and then working inside Google Drive inside a file stream or working in a Google document online. We know that when someone is switching from a Microsoft document over to a Google document, they're going to take time to find the buttons and learn some new keyboard shortcuts and learn some slightly different ways of doing things in some cases. Now, that's not to say that anyone can't get there or it's not going to work over time. And you may even find that right now, if you've not implemented change well inside your business, that you've got team members who are actually half implemented and halfway across two different systems. Baby First Steps is about helping someone get a taste for the new way of working, and then allowing them to build up their confidence. When you give someone a basic first step and they build up a bit of confidence, then they're more excited to take the next step and the next step and the next step and the next step. So that's what Baby First Steps is about. Now, important is knowing who's responsible to make sure these baby first steps happen, right? Good project design is very important. Making sure that you have a good project plan is important. And look, I'm not a fetishist for things like Gantt charts and overcomplicating project planning and project strategy, but I do really believe in making sure that things are well thought out for the human experience of the tool that you're going to implement. If you are implementing something that's going to radically change not only the way that someone does their work and the knowledge that they have to retain on how to use that tool, but it also may be changing processes in the business as you're implementing it, just keep in mind that your team are going to be going through a bit of a topsy-turvy time. There's going to be a lot of rapid change for them. And if you are an entrepreneur or a business owner, you are likely very used to dealing with change. You're likely to be used to and even thriving in uncertain environments, in taking on new challenges, new opportunities, or new strategies, or dealing with the challenges that are thrown at you like COVID. We're used to this, but our team are not used to this. Teams desire certainty over variety. Now, it's not to say that nobody likes challenge and nobody likes having some healthy level of variety in their role. But when you're implementing a new tool, keep in mind that you're probably more excited about it than your team. And so it's up to you to make sure that your team are chaperoned in a way that's actually comfortable for them in their experience. Our final one for success is report back. And this is really about checking in with how things are going. If you don't report back, you may find that something's implemented and then it tends to drop off on the usage over time. Or maybe you implement something, but you don't quite get the result that you're after. And so reporting back is about checking in with your team and making sure that they're actually using the tool that you want them to use, but also that you're getting the results and the organizational change and the systems improvement and the productivity increase that you actually wanted in the first place when you were implementing that tool. So how can we do a report? Well, you might use something like a Google form and check in with the team. How is this process for you? How did the change go? Are you liking the new tool? Is this helpful for you? Is this working for you? You might check in on KPIs. You might have some one-on-ones. You might ask managers to check in with their team members and, get a bit of a feel for how things are going. But also the thing that you can do as a business owner or as an executive is to actually check in. And what that means is you literally open up the app and you see if it's being used. Or maybe you manage by walking around. You check in and you ask a couple of people one-on-one and you ask, hey, we've implemented this new tool recently. How's it going for you? Is it working? Is it doing what you need it to do? And that's going to be your way of making sure that you're checking in whether or not this tool is actually being used and therefore is successful in the change. So let's go back to our diagnostic and let's just kind of finish this one off, guys. So we've gone through each one of the steps and you now have an idea about what each of these means. I think I got that right. You now have a good idea of what each of these means and how you can utilize these inside the business when you're going through change. So I'm going to do a quick summary and let's just see what can happen when we don't implement one of these steps. So if you see here, if you're frustrated by people's reactions, then perhaps you haven't painted a clear vision. People didn't know why we were doing this, and so they weren't on board with it from the very start. Okay, so number two, if your desired outcome was not achieved, well, maybe you didn't have the leadership on board and making sure that they were actually leading and getting things going. But also modeling the way is about showing how things are done. If you're not training someone properly, if you're not actually providing those resources to show them how it's done and having your team members in the roles and responsibility of actually implementing this change, showing the way, then it's less likely it's going to work for you. All right, number three, too long for people to adapt. So that one's about pressure. That's about actually making sure that you're pushing through with your with your plan. You're making sure that people have the right resources that they need to actually, make sure that they can actually learn what they need to learn, but that you're actually ensuring that people are using the tool. And as I suggested, that may be switching off the old tool so they no longer have access to the old tool, and making sure, yes, we are going live from a certain date. Remember, if you're only half committed to something, then the team are going to be less than half committed. And so it's really important for you to make sure that you are eating the dog food, as they say at Google, and applying and implementing the new tool and actually then using it yourself.